Ms. Etienne, could we have Exhibit 778, which is in evidence, on the screen, please? Ms. Carter, to your right, there's a computer monitor that's going to show some pictures as we go along. Okay. Is that 778? That's my mistake. Let's look at 795. Do you recognize the person, Ms. Carter? Yes, sir. Who's that? That's Spike. Now, at GD Day, did you meet anyone else besides Spike? Yes. I met Iz. I met China. There was a lot of people there. I'm trying to think of everyone. Now, can I stop you for a moment? Who is Iz? Iz was he's the assistant governor. Ms. Etienne, could we have 619, please? One moment, Your Honor. I'm not going to show you a photo quite yet, Ms. Carter, but I am going to ask you, in the early time of your involvement in Georgia, did you ever hear about an event called BOS Weekend? Yes, sir. What's BOS Weekend? It's an annual event where all the members come together. There's different activities. There's speeches. It's just like a reunion. Did you hear about or did you go to BOS Weekend? Yes, sir. Could we have 610, Ms. Etienne? Do you recognize this person? Yes, sir. Who is that? That's Iz. You mentioned that Spike was the governor and Iz was the assistant governor. What do those positions mean? They're over the state. They coordinate the state. And is there any leadership position above the governor of the state? Yes. What's that called? Board member. Did you ever hear about or meet any board members after you came to Georgia? Yes, sir. Which one? Hear about or meet? I met Sheikh G. Who is Sheikh G? He was the board member that I met. Ms. Etienne, let's have 796. One moment, Your Honor. And Sheikh G, what powers or authority did he have as a board member in the group? He was a coordinator over his selected states in the United States. Did you know which states those were? I don't know all of them. Did they include Georgia? Yes. Now, you mentioned meeting with DePayne, with Mac G, and with AO. You mentioned meeting Spike and meeting Iz. Apart from starting to go to these events and to attend these meetings, was there any formal application process that you had to go through to become part of the group in Georgia? No. Did you ever interact with a person you knew as Nay? Yes. What were your interactions with Nay? I talked to Nay several times on the phone. She would give me different things to do, like set up a Feed the Hungry or community cleanup. This was my probationary period to become an official member. And so, doing these things for Nay as your probationary period, was that part of your application into the group in Georgia? Yes. Was there ever a time as part of your application period that you had to answer questions or get quizzed about knowledge? Yes. Tell us how that happened. The first time that happened was before I actually met Spike. We had a conversation on the phone. He had heard about me. He called me and he asked me about some of my literature and asked me to say it to him, and I did, and he corrected me on what I got wrong. You said the word literature. What's literature? It's information that we're supposed to memorize, which could be laws and policies or creeds that are written. And eventually, did you become a full-fledged member in good standing of the group in Georgia? Yes, sir. Did you still know it as growth and development at this time? Yes, sir. You talked about GD Day. You talked about BOS Weekend. Were there other events or other gatherings that you went to as part of the group? Yes, several. We had the Gangsters Ball. We had more GD Days that we attended. We had events where we would have Easter egg hunts for kids. Back to school, get like books and stuff like that for kids. Now, what was the Gangster Ball that you mentioned? It was just like a big party that we had each year. I was there for 2 of them. I'm going to walk up to you, Ms. Carter, an exhibit that is labeled Government's 618, which is in evidence. Do you recognize this DVD box? Yes, sir. What is that? This is the DVD for the second Gangsters Ball. Have you seen that DVD before? Yes, sir. Did you have a copy of that DVD? At one time I did. Where did you get it from? From Iz. Ms. Etienne, could we play that video beginning at the 14-minute mark, please? Maybe I'll ask you some other questions while we're waiting on that, Ms. Carter. You talked about Spike being the governor and Iz being the assistant governor. Did they hold these positions for the entire time that you were involved in the group, or did those change at some point? While I was involved in the group, no, yes. When I first became a member, Iz was a coordinator, or he had just got promoted to a regent, and then he became an assistant governor later. Spike was always the governor. There was never a time when Iz was the governor? At the time that I was here and active, no. What about after you were active? After I left, he became the governor. And early on, you mentioned in the context of the first C and the second C that I believe you said within their area there was a treasurer and security enforcement? Yes. Did those special positions, treasurer, security, and enforcement, also exist at the statewide level? Yes. Did you learn who held any of those positions at the state level? Yes. Do you know who the statewide chief enforcer was? Yes. Who was that? Izzy, or KK. I'm sorry. Correction, it's KK. KK? Yes. Did you learn who the statewide chief of security was? Yes. That was Izzy. That was Izzy? Yes. And Izzy is a different person from Iz? Yes, sir. Let's go back to the governor ball, Ms. Carter. And if we can, let's play that DVD, please, starting at the 14-minute mark. We'll play about 15 seconds worth. Now, in this portion of the video, the short portion we just watched, Ms. Carter, do you recognize anyone you know? Yes. Who do you see in the video? Myself, China, and Iz. And the other ones are... I'm not sure about the other ones. So where is Iz in the pause screen we see at the 14-minute and 13-second mark? Where is Iz? He's holding the mic. Right there in the middle? The one speaking? Yes. Where are you in this video screen? In the white shirt with my back turned. You had kind of just walked into the frame at the where we paused it, and you've got your back turned now? Yes, sir. And this was the gangster ball at which you were in attendance? This was the second one I was in attendance to. Alright, let's go back to the positions that we were just talking about. You said that Izzy, not Iz, but Izzy was the chief of security for the state? Yes, sir. Miss Etienne, if I could get you back into trial director and we could have exhibit 776 on the screen. We're going to take a break from the photos for just a moment, Ms. Carter. But let me ask you this. Within the structure of the gang, were the men and women all together, or were the men and women separate in any ways? Separate. Tell us how that worked. The sisters had their own structure. We had our own set of enforcement, security. We didn't have governors. We had first, second ladies. We had our own coordinators and treasurers. When you say the sisters, does that refer to the female members? Yes, sir. Was there a word for the male members? We called them our brothers. So the sisters and the brothers? Yes. And do the terms SOS or BOS mean anything to you? Yes. The Sisters of Struggle and Brothers of Struggle. The Sisters of Struggle being the women in the group? Yes, sir. And the Brothers of Struggle being the men in the group? Yes, sir. Did you say that the sisters had their own leadership positions or positions of authority? Yes, sir. And I use that term, positions of authority. But is that a term you use in the sisters? Yes. Or POA. POA means position of authority? Yes, sir. When you were in the Sisters, did you ever hold any POAs? Yes, sir. Which POAs did you hold? Coordinator and regent and a second lady. And how did you acquire those positions? The first lady gave them to me. And who was the first lady? China. Did you know whether China had any kind of relationship with Iz, the assistant governor? Yes, that was his girlfriend. And the brothers and the sisters, as you mentioned, they had different names. Would they always do the same things together, or were there ways in which they would be separated? We did things separate most of the time. Were there things that the brothers did that the sisters weren't supposed to be a part of? Yes. What kinds of things were those? A lot of things. They had their own meetings, what they call GD business, they handled on their own. Any type of... Let me stop you. Did you say GD business? Yes. And this was something the sisters were excluded from? Yes. Did you learn anything about what GD business entailed? Yes. I learned from a few different brothers what it was. What is GD business? It could have been handling a situation where there could have been a fight, or it might have been a violation. It could have been selling drugs. It could have been just maybe someone was making a threat on one of them, and they were going to, however they handled it, they were going to handle it. Did you know all these things when you set out to join Growth and Development when you first got to Georgia? No, sir. Now, within the group, Ms. Carter, were there rules that members were expected to obey? Yes. I'm going to move to the Elmo with an exhibit that's in evidence as Government 98 and turn to the 7th page of that exhibit. Ms. Carter, do you recognize the information that's on this page? Yes. Do you recognize this actual document itself as being one that you've seen before? Yes, sir. What's the document that we're looking at here? Our laws. And so these are laws that you were expected to be familiar with? Yes, sir. And to follow? Yes, sir. Were laws like these part of the information that you got quizzed on by Spike when you were first signing up? Yes, sir. Now, what's the very first law that we see on the page, Ms. Carter? Silence and secrecy. Was that something that was important to the group? Yes. It's labeled number 1 on the list. Was it your understanding as a member that it just happened to be at the top of the list? Or was there any special importance associated with that rule? Not to my knowledge, there was no special importance. What does silence and secrecy mean for the group? That you won't give any information about a member to anyone. What's the purpose of silence and secrecy? Security. Was this a rule that was important to you when you were associated with the Growth and Development Community Service stuff? No, I didn't. I had heard the laws before, but it was never something, that was not something that was ever a real significance until I came to Georgia. Once you had been in Georgia for a little while, did silence and secrecy become more important? Yes, sir. And then the one that's labeled number 11 on this document. What's that rule, Ms. Carter? Incidents. Did you have an understanding while you were in the group of what this incidents law meant? Yes, sir. What did it mean? Any incidents that could take place in the community or with a member was to be reported, and that could be any type of injury, altercation, anything of importance. And I'll ask again, when you were setting out to get involved in the growth and development, as you understood it, was reporting incidents a big part of being in that growth and development? It was important. What kind of incidents would come up in the growth and development context? We were doing community services, so if something happened in our community, to my understanding, we would need to let that be known in case it could be a simple cleanup. Maybe someone's house burnt down. We could assist them with that. It could be helping a child. That was my original understanding of an incident. You said your original understanding? Yes. As time went by and you became more involved in Georgia, were there other kinds of incidents that needed to be reported? Yes. What about the next law under that, number 12? Which is that, Ms. Carter? Aid and assist. What does aid and assist mean? It means that you will help your brother or your sister, which would be another growth and development member, in any endeavor that they had, as long as you were able to assist them. Then you mentioned the treasurer, and I believe you said the word dues. Yes, sir. Were dues part of this group? Yes, sir. Tell us how dues worked. Every week or month, it really depended on your city, how your city did it. You would pay whatever amount of money was allotted. Like, it might be $7 or it could be $25. It changed throughout time. You would pay that money, and that money would go to your treasury. If I said the word the box, is that something that means anything? It's the same thing. The box is the treasury? Yes, sir. So all the money that people paying the dues goes in the box? Yes, sir. Now, Ms. Carter, we've been talking about growth and development, and we were asking questions about your early time when you first got involved in Georgia. I want to ask you directly because you've made some allusions, but was there a time when you began to realize that growth and development was not at all that this group was about in Georgia? Yes, sir. Tell us when you first started to become aware of that. We were asked to go to Statesboro. We didn't know why we were going to Statesboro. We were just... So... I'm sorry. Who told you that you had to go to Statesboro? I don't remember who the original call came from, but I was notified by KD. By whom? KD and DePayne, at the same time. And were those the people you told us about earlier? I didn't mention KD. But you mentioned DePayne. Yes, sir. Was DePayne still the coordinator over Dublin at that time? Yes, sir. And who was KD? KD was one of the members. I don't know if he was an enforcer or security at the time. He was in both positions at once. How far in advance of this trip to Statesboro did they give you this instruction? Not long. They just told us to get ready, and we were supposed to wait at the exit for the rest of the members that were coming to get us. So, was it pretty much drop of a hat, let's go to Statesboro right now? Yes, sir. Did you go to Statesboro? Yes, sir. How did you get there? We drove. When you say we, who were you with? There were some sisters there with me. I don't remember all of them, but there was probably maybe 6 or 7. And then probably equal amount of brothers also attended. So 6 or 7 sisters with you, and then 6 or 7 brothers with you? Right. You didn't all fit in one car, I guess. No, we took multiple cars. Do you recall how many cars you took down to Statesboro? I believe it was 3, maybe 4. And then the 3 or 4 cars that you all were in, were those the only cars that went on down to Statesboro, or did any others go? No, sir. I couldn't tell you how many cars. It was several. Several more than the 3 or 4 you just mentioned? Yes. And did those cars have multiple people in them also? Yes, sir. Were you able to see how many total people there were that made this trip to Statesboro? No, but I can tell you it was more than 40. Then a handful of names have already come up so far. Were any of the people we've already talked about part of this group that went to Statesboro? Yes, sir. Who all was there? Iz was there. KK was there. China was there. DePayne was there. I was there. And the names we mentioned, I believe that was it. Do you recall whether Izzy, the chief of security, being there? I don't recall Izzy being there. But KK, the chief enforcer, was.
Yes.
And DePayne, the coordinator, was.
Yes.
And Is, the assistant governor, was.
Yes.
Do you remember roughly when this was, the year?
Maybe 2012, 2013.
So what happened when you got to Statesboro?
We were all just hanging out at first. We were not told why we were there at that point. When Is in China showed up, we went into, it was like a townhouse, and we were all kind of piled in together, as many could fit in.
All those 40 or more people all went into the townhouse?
Most of us. Not everyone could fit in. Some were standing outside as security.
You said you went in when Is in China arrived?
Yes, sir.
So did they come separately?
They were riding in a vehicle together.
What happened in the townhouse?
When everybody got in there, a violation took place.
Now, what's a violation?
It's a punishment. It's a physical punishment.
Punishment. Why would someone be punished?
It could be a lot of reasons, but this particular reason was that the reason that I know about was the brothers that were violated had made a threat on the Sister Truth's life.
Is it a violation when you break the rules of the gang? Some of those rules we talked about?
Yes, sir.
So tell us in a little bit more. How did you learn what this particular violation concerned?
They started addressing it. They let Truth speak and tell her story on what had happened.
This was all in the townhouse?
Yes, sir.
So do I take it that some kind of meeting or address was held?
Yes, sir.
Who was it that was leading the meeting, or who was it that was explaining what was going on?
It was Is.
So what did Is say?
Is asked Truth what happened.
And Truth was a sister?
Truth was a sister.
What did Truth say happened?
She said that she was at a party with the brother Dot, and that someone had approached her with a gun, and Dot basically ran and left her there by herself to handle it on her own, and she said that he set her up.
What happened after Truth said that?
They asked Doc if it was true. There was also another gentleman named Steel G that was there, and he was involved somehow. And when
Steel G was also a brother or a member?
Yes, sir. When they asked him about it, they admitted to it. They admitted that they had planned on harming her.
So they admitted that they had set up a robbery on one of the sisters?
Yes.
What happened after that?
The Steel G and Doc were taken into a different room. I believe it was the kitchen area. I didn't go back there, but I believe it was the kitchen area.
Who took them back into the kitchen area?
It was some of the brothers. There were brothers that were told to come back there. One, Is went back there. KK went back there. DePayne was told to go back there. And I don't know who else went.
You didn't go back there, did you?
No, sir.
Were you able to see or hear what was going on back there?
I could hear it.
What did you hear?
It sounded like fighting. A lot of, grunt noises. Sounded like someone being hit.
Did you say that Is, the assistant governor, had gone back there?
He did go back there.
Did you say that KK, the chief enforcer, had gone back there?
Yes.
Did either Is or KK say anything that you heard before or after they went back there?
I heard KK tell DePayne that if they didn't make it out, that they knew what they had to do.
If who doesn't make it out?
He didn't state a name, but I believe he was referring to Steel G and Doc.
Didn't make it out?
Yes.
What did you take that to mean?
If they didn't live through this the way I took it.
He said, if that happens, you know what to do?
They knew what they had to do.
Did you hear Is say anything?
Is said, and he was smiling, smirking. He said that he wanted a finger.
He wanted a finger?
Yes.
Did you get the chance to see Doc or Still G after you heard these things?
Yes.
How did they look?
Roughed up. Not bleeding, but like maybe a busted lip. They hugged all of us, the females, and apologized to us.
And so, would you describe that as a violation?
Yes.
Was that consistent with your understanding of how violations were supposed to go in growth and development?
Absolutely not.
What did you think of that?
At that point, shocked. Confused, maybe. I guess that would probably be a better word.
Was this type of violation part of the 720 concept?
No.
Was this violation a violation of this kind part of the 360 concept?
Yes, sir.
And did you leave the group after that?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
I talked to the First Lady, China, about the situation, and she told me that that's not something that she knew of that would normally happen. I also talked to Izzy, not Iz, but Izzy, about it, and Izzy told me that that's not supposed to happen either.
But the governor or the assistant governor of the state had been there when it happened.
Iz, the assistant governor, was.
And the chief of security for the state had been there when it happened.
The chief enforcer.
The chief enforcer of the state. I'm sorry. So China told you that that's not normal. Is that what you said?
Right.
So you stuck around?
Yes.
Did you ever see this type of physical violation again after what happened in Statesboro?
Yes, I did.
About how many times?
With the sisters, maybe three times. With the brothers, twice. The sisters weren't supposed to be there when it happened to the brothers.
Do you recall the details of any of those 5 times?
Yes. The one time with the sisters was a sister named Ashley. She had been holding money for a brother that was incarcerated, and she spent his money. And he wanted his money back, and he had been making complaints to myself and to China that he wanted his money. And we had a meeting in Atlanta. It was the first meeting that I had attended with just the sisters, a big meeting. Everyone was supposed to come. Ashley was violated at the meeting for spending the brother's money and not giving it back to him.
So let me just make sure I'm clear. Each of the 5 violations that you mentioned to us, 3 for the sisters and 2 for the brothers, all those 5 were violent like the Statesboro one?
Yes.
Even the ones where the women would carry out the violations? Were those also beatings like that?
Yes.
And you were part of some of those?
I was.
You told us that. Let me ask this. Was there ever a violation that you knew of involving someone named Dreddy?
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
Dreddy had been given, I don't know what kind of drugs. I just know some drugs from what Dreddy told me. He was supposed to distribute it through his deck, which means the brothers he was in charge of. They were supposed to collect the money, and I don't know who they were supposed to give the money to. Dreddy did not do that, so he owed money. They had been trying to contact him to get him to give them the money. He was running from them. So they put out what was called a GD arrest, which meant that any member that come in contact with him was supposed to either bring him to Iz, or they were supposed to let it be known where he was at. He actually came to the recording studio where Iz's recording studio, and I was there. Iz had another brother take Dreddy into the recording booth, the other brother named Savage, and he had hit him 40 times in the chest, and then Iz hit him one more time.
Was it exactly 40 times? Do you know?
I remember him saying 40 times because I thought it was more than a lot.
Excuse me, Mr. Mulrow. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to adjourn for the evening at this time. So you're excused and we'll resume the trial at 9:30 tomorrow morning.